Hello everyone, and welcome to an R introduction video. And in this video, what I want to talk about is data frames. Data frames are probably one of the most fundamental data structures in R, and especially when we're dealing with geospatial data, the data frame is really the building block for what the attribute table would become. So understanding how data frames work, how to index them, how to create new columns are all very important pieces of information and different tools that you're really going to need to be able to understand and utilize going forward in R. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to just talk about some very basics of the data frame. And one of the nice things with R is that R actually comes preloaded with a lot of different data sets. And one of the most common is actually called the iris data set. So if we just type data and iris, we will load the iris data set. So just a quick tip for using RStudio or R Markdown in RStudio is that if you have a line of code like this and your icon, your mouse is currently on that line of code, if you hit the control key plus enter, you will see that it actually runs it down here in the console. So that's a quick and easy way of running code very efficiently. So you'll see over here in the values that we've loaded a promise of the iris dataset. So now anytime we type the word iris with no quotes, you'll see that we get the iris option here, and that this little symbol here looks like a calendar. That's actually the RStudio symbol for a data frame. And you'll see over here, as soon as we type the word iris, that promise has switched over to say that we have a data frame with 150 observations and 5 variables. So I just want to take a second and explain what this over here means. When it says 150 observations and 5 variables, what that means is that there are 150 rows and 5 columns. You can think of a data frame as being very similar to, say, a CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet where you have rows and columns. In this case, it's saying we have 150 observations, which is 150 rows, and 5 variables or 5 columns. So probably the most important thing you will ever do with a data frame, and I encourage you to do this every single time when you're working with them, is to figure out what the rows and columns are. And now we can quickly look over here at this data panel and we can see this, but there will be cases where maybe you're not able to see this. Say you're doing a homework assignment and you've knitted your R Markdown and you can't access this panel anymore. So the quick and easy way to do that is simply type DIM or dim for dimensions, and you'll see that we have the contextual pop-up here saying dim, receive, or set the dimensions of an object, and it's a function. So as with all functions, you have a parentheses, and then RStudio automatically completes that. And then you just type in dim iris. And if we hit control enter again, you'll see we run it, and you'll see that our Markdown ran it. And you'll see that we get 150 and 5 in this list here. And so just like over here, 150 and 5, the important thing with dim is that it starts with the number of rows and then the number of columns. So let's just make a quick comment here. We will say num rows num columns ex 150 and 5. Okay, so that's just to remind ourselves that the dimensions come rows then columns. So that's the first most basic thing, and I encourage you anytime you're dealing with a data set in R that's a data frame that you immediately do the dim. This is especially important when you're dealing with reading in information from files like shape files or CSVs, because sometimes you might find that you have a mismatch between what you expected to come in and what actually came in. This could be due to headers or other weird things that happen with R. So just always make sure you're double checking the dimensions of your data set. The second thing that you typically will want to do is you'll want to do something called checking the names or the headers. So if you think about back to that idea of a CSV file, a lot of times when you're dealing with a CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet, the first row will typically be an indicator of what is in that column, right? So it'd be like, they call it a header in this case. And headers in R, if we actually print out the iris data set, so we do print and an iris, and if we run this, you'll see that we have this nicely formatted thing here with all of the rows and columns in the data set. You'll see here the sepal.length, right? That's what's called the header of the data set. So if this was a CSV file, right? Sepal.length would be the first row, sepal.width, petal length, petal width, etc. And so another important thing that you might want to know is, well, what are these names? And this is going to be very important when we do things like indexing, right? Knowing what the names are. And so the quickest way to do that is just simply to type in a function called names. And again, you'll see the contextual pop-up giving us the completion there. And so if we type in names iris and we run that, you'll see that it prints out a list of all the names. So sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width, species. Right? So now we know how to figure out how many rows and columns there are. We know how to figure out the names of the rows and the names of the columns. The next thing that you might want to do is you might want to just see a quick preview of the data set. So we did print here, and this prints out the entire data set. And there are instances where that's perfectly fine, and there's going to be instances where you might have 1,000 rows, and that would just be cumbersome and unwieldy. But you want to see sort of a snapshot of what the data looks like. And the quickest way to do that is with a function called head, H-E-A-D, head. So what head will do is head will print out the names, just like we saw when we did print, but it will restrict it to the first 6 rows. So if I do head iris and run that, you'll see just like before, we have the names along the top, but then we only have the first 6 rows. So this is a really quick and dirty way to sort of see what the data looks like. Make sure that your columns look like what you expect them to. So again, just to review, we have the dimension function, or the dim function, which gives you the number of rows and the number of columns in that order. We have the print function, which I didn't really explain. Hopefully it's kind of intuitive, and that prints the entire data set. Right, that prints the entire data set. We have names, which prints the column names. And then we have head, which prints out the first 6 rows of the data set. So again, dim, print, names, and head are very basic fundamental things that you're going to want to do pretty much every time that you are working with a data frame. You may not necessarily always want to print it, but you're pretty much always going to want to check the dims, check the names, and do a head, just to make sure that your data is looking like what you expect it to. So hopefully this was pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out. And thank you.